Ever since I was a little kid, I have been very much interested in ships for its aesthetics. I also had the great opportunity to work in a very, very exciting industry. Not only an industry, and the whole area, because started with the shipyards as an engineer, but also remained in the maritime industry in practically every aspect of it. You know, in the ship owning, ship management, in the port development, in floating loaders and unloaders and so on. So my whole 40-odd years of my life was actually in the maritime industry. And you know how somehow that gets into me. And I consider myself something of a maritime heritage advocate. And I believe, therefore, that the maritime industry needs people of heart, with a heart, rather than the people with a head. So it's from that angle that I kind of pitch myself as a lover of seas and ship and a lover of the aesthetics of the seas. So these are the things that I do. Ever since I was very, very young, I try to figure out how a ship looked like. And more recently, having retired, where I can kind of throw away my business image and become, you know, like back to the hippie days again, I've been doing more and more painting. This is an imaginary picture of Zheng He. But I feel that this perhaps is one of the better ones, because I think historically the record says that if nothing else, he has very thick eyebrow. And it is true. It's big and he's very thick eyebrow. There's very little other description of him. And of course, he's not Chinese, not Han. He's from Yunnan. Originally, he's a Uyghur. So I think this imaginary portrait of him does bring that out. Just to put everybody in context, he lived 1371 to 1435. He died at sea. He was born in Kunyang, Yunnan, Muslim, non-Han, and he was a eunuch serving the Emperor Yongle. And he made 7 voyages to the so-called Western Ocean, 郑和下西洋, Western Ocean. The Western Ocean, of course, is basically the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea. And these are the dates that he had his voyages. And this is basically a general picture of some of the places he went to. He went as far as Mogadishu. So we have to distinguish between facts and fiction. So I will tell you, in fact, Zheng He is facts, because there are certain things which, of course, is totally non-disputable. There's a Zheng He well in Malacca. Zheng He presented a bell to the Sultan of Aceh, which I understand still around. The very famous trilingual stele in Sri Lanka, in which there were 3 different languages. I think 3 different languages talking about his exploits. The tombs of the Sultan of Brunei and Sulu are in China. And the site, and this I'm very interested in, is the site of that supposed big building docks that is still in Nanjing. In fact, the site you can still see. And of course, other little artifacts are, rudder stalks and so on, which prove that, during that period, the ships were actually very, very big. So you compare a government-funded, Celestial Empire-funded enterprise against what seems to me to be some seed money collected by an adventurer, and therefore there's no comparison. So when I talk about Zheng He, I'm always holding some kind of a respect for the people like Columbus, people like Vasco da Gama, who went out as individuals with their individual belief rather than having the support, of this humongous organization. This is a picture of the Longjiang shipyard. In fact, there were 6 humongous basins, I suppose you call, that were used to be the building site of the so-called the Baojiang fleet. In fact, that's not the only place. There are other places where they also, Quanzhou and so on, where they also build the fleet. One of the biggest engineering challenge of the Chinese is flood defense. Digging and building levees, cofferdams and things like that is what they do for survival. Yeah. So it is something that they have an innate skill, they have the right kind of people to do it. So what they do is they dig this big depression in the ground, leaving the cofferdam, doing basically a causeway of earth to prevent the waterfall from coming in. They build their ships side by side, and when the time is right, they open up the cofferdam, the ship floats out. So there's no launching. A 2,000 liao ship is about 60 meters, is about the size of HMS Victory. It's about the size, is about the same tonnage as a HMS Victory. So it is a very big ship, it's a feasible ship, and if 600 years ago you built a ship of that size, it's a very, very large achievement. It's by no means something that you can scoff at. But technically, and from a naval architectural point of view, it is a possibility. We used the Zheng He thing as an opportunity to better understand the ancient Chinese maritime technology, to understand the bounds of possibility of Zheng He's deeds. So first of all, we talk about the Chinese sailing ship, which we call a Zheng. The Zheng in the 15th century, I would dare to say, is the most technologically developed vessels in terms of, not in one dimension, but in 3 dimensions. So one is its seaworthiness and sea kindliness. It's not just seaworthy, it's sea kindly. I will talk a little bit about what you mean by sea kindly. Because you can have a very seaworthy vessel, but if you go on it, you get sick because it rocks so much. It is economically very efficient. Why? In terms of its manning, in terms of its simplicity of operation, and it's technologically advanced. It can do things that other similar vessels of the period cannot do. So on this basis, I would argue that in the 15th century, the Chinese sailing vessels is very, very developed. The Chinese sailors are very proud. They say that there are 8 points on the compass, of which 7 I can sail. There are 8 points on the compass, of which 7. Unless the wind comes directly towards me, I can't sail. But if the wind comes here, I can sail there. There's no problem because of my sail design. Watertight. Now, this is a picture of a ship with the watertight. Well, not all of these are watertight compartments, but a lot of this is watertight. Now, why is it watertight? Because the Chinese vessels are framed transversely. And the modern ships are framed longitudinally. In other words, the strength member are forward and aft. But a lot of the older ships are framed, the strength is given by the transverse member. And when you have the strength in the transverse member, it's actually quite easy for some of them to be fully, a full wall, a full bulkhead, you see. So the Chinese system of giving the transverse strength is to have a lot of this transverse bulkhead. And the transverse bulkhead also allow the mast to be mounted on it. So the Chinese has this watertight compartment. Marco Polo and so on all have recorded that it is so. So watertight compartments since the 2nd century. And of course, the famous story about Titanic is that the watertight compartment is not enough. Therefore, when they breached 2 of them, the ship sank. So up to 13, 14 compartments. And it will affect the multi-mast design because you can actually put a mast off-center and it still got strength. So this is how the Chinese would sail or Zheng He would sail. He ended up in Hormuz. He wanted to come to Calicut. According to his book, it is 11 fingers. He will sail in a general direction because at this point, no point looking. Like it's more than 11 fingers. When he's in Hormuz, he look up. He said, "Oh, it's more than 11 fingers." I know. Calicut is actually much more south than that. So he will sail in some general direction, some general bearing. I will talk a little bit about how they find the bearing later on. So as they sail closer and closer and closer, and they see the pole star in the night coming down, slowly, until it's almost there. He said, "Oh, it looks like it's 12 fingers. Aga, 12 fingers." Then they'll take out this magical thing, and then they will do this. The angle, subtended, is a fixed angle. So as the ship rocked a little bit like that, it aligned the bottom to the horizon. You must remember it's in pitch dark. It's in the darkness of the night. It's not like now. You see, if today, with our understanding of the sky and the latitudes and longitudes, and we have the theory in our mind, and we say, let me design a celestial navigation system. We know too much. We know too much for us to design something that's workable. But if you are that Indian living in Calicut going to Cochin, and maybe once in a while going to Ceylon, is different. Because that Indian, starting from Calicut, sees there is the pole star, oh, like that. Then he go to Cochin and say, oh, it's higher or lower. Then go to Sri Lanka, oh, it's lower still. Then what he will do, without any latitude and longitude, without any signs, he will say, perhaps if I can have a way of finding out how high this star is, I'll be able to come back. Why don't I try? I still can depend on the land because Cochin, Calicut, they're all on the shore, right? Why don't I just depend on the land, but I will do my experiment? So guess what? The Arabs and the Indians, they came out with this wonderful thing called a kamal. A piece of wood about this size. When they go down, assuming that he was in this Calicut and said, oh, that pole star is there. Okay, it's like that, right? Like that. I'll put a knot here. Knot. So they tie a Calicut knot. Calicut knot. Then he go to Cochin. Then he say, oh, here. He got a Cochin knot. So the next time, depending, he never give up in his sight. He will try. Oh, it should be very close to Calicut already. I say this because I want to be philosophical. That in fact, some of the things that is in black and white, some of the things that is in our mind, is of a secondary importance. The first importance is something that is learning from the reality of our experience, learning from the reality of our experience directly from our heart.